welcome back to the RPMBassy. This is John and Mark counting down our top 20 vinyl records, and at the moment we are on number 17. This time round I'm going to be going first, and my pick is the album Bon Voyage by Sport. So Sport are a not very well known French band. I suppose the genre that you could kind of push them into is Midwest emo, which makes no sense considering they're French. They're not from the Midwest, they're not even from America. But in terms of the music that they make, like, so underappreciated. I think that kind of emo genre has kind of really taken off recently, with a lot of people go on about like YouTube algorithms and stuff like that. The way, like, in the sidebar of YouTube, you'll see full albums popping up. Especially with like Japanese artists recently, I've seen a lot of people kind of discovering older albums that way. But this is one that has sort of done the rounds doing that, but hasn't gotten as much traction as some things have done. But Midwest emo has definitely become a lot more popular with like the general music community in the past few years, and I think this album is just like a real standout of the genre as a whole.
What makes it Midwest emo? I'm intrigued.
So it's characterised typically by a lot of it is down to the guitar tuning. So they won't be using like E standard, or some of them do, but a lot of them won't. And you know, their guitar tunings allow for a lot more kind of esoteric and weird chord voicings. There's a YouTube channel called Let's Talk About Midwest Emo. I believe that's what it's called, or Let's Talk About Math Rock, one or the other. But he has a lot of really good videos about how the genre as a whole kind of works. But it's super guitar oriented. Probably the most like famous of that kind of genre would be American football. The song Never Meant is the one that a lot of people will have heard of, even if they don't necessarily know a lot of the genre. But yeah, it's kind of an offshoot of what people would know as math rock, where it's not perhaps quite as complex, but still shares a lot of the characteristics in terms of that kind of widdly guitar sound, a lot of Fender Telecasters being used, and a lot of overly dramatic lyrics. And yeah, this kind of really leans into that with the emo side of things. Big thing for this one is the intro track, Reggie Lewis. So it starts off with a little intro, which is essentially all just one long audio clip from, I believe it's the Lost Boys.
All right. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to put the album out on any proper label that way, because I don't think they got clearance for the sample. But yeah, it kind of wraps up that kind of timelessness of like kind of childhood nostalgia and things like that.
I was going to say Lost Boys is one of my all-time favourite films, so I'm intrigued to have a listen to that.
It's either Lost Boys or Stand By Me. It's one of those two.
Okay.
One of those two films.
Still another good film.
But yeah, it's that kind of weird nostalgic feeling without being nostalgic for, you know, it's nostalgia for a time that I personally never actually experienced. But yeah, it really does a fantastic job of capturing that with just little bits of guitar in the background, and then it jumps into the actual track itself, where it's quite heavy to start off with, but there's a lot of passion behind it. It's not just all aggression. Yeah, fantastic album. Really, really recommend it.
Cool. Just got to say, whenever Mark used to bring vinyl along to the vinyl clubs, I was always intrigued. We kind of spoke about his vinyl, and I really want to listen to that now. And my vinyl collection has definitely doubled because of Mark. So definitely check out his stuff. He sells it so well. So my number 17. This is the first album by, I suppose you could call them an Electroclash duo. You probably realise right now we were quite big in the Electroclash scene, so a lot of my records in this list are from that Electroclash era. And this is the album by Fisher Spooner, number 1. Originally appeared in 2001 on limited release on, again, Gigolo Records. I think, you understand, I do like that label. I think it's just one more from Gigolo Records in the top 20. But this is an album that I suppose everyone knows. It was just done to death. But when it originally came out, it just blew our minds. It came out limited release on Gigolo, and I used to drop this record all the time. Its first incarnation, which is this one here, there was a couple of tracks that didn't appear later on. You got things like Invisible, The 15th, and also there was a track on here called Fucker. Actually, spelt like fucker. We might have to edit that out, right?
That's fine.
The later incarnations of this album is they just replaced that word with symbols. And I didn't know that until I was doing research for this album. But this album, every track on this is just incredible. Is the vocals from Casey Spooner, the production from the band themselves is just brilliant, and the amalgamation of electronica with pop and melody. It's so great, and it influenced a lot of us, especially in the early noughties, trying to do our own kind of electro clash. But they did it with class, and I love this album so much. It's been out so many times. It's got signed to a major, and I think at one point, I can't remember what label, Miniature Sound, I think, signed this, and I think this is the record that nearly broke Miniature Sound, because by the time they had signed it, it'd already been out. We'd already been buying it. People were already been playing it. And they just pumped a lot of money into this. And what I heard, they paid like quite a few million for this. But by the time they'd put it out on different variations, on different CDs, then they released all these remixes. We'd already been hammering this for years. So a lot of people already had this. So I can understand why they lost a lot of money. It wasn't Fisher Spooner's fault. They just raked it in. But this is Fisher Spooner #1. If you haven't heard this album, it's incredible. There's also a couple of tracks that's not on this and was on the expanded version of this album later on. There was a track called Mega Colon, which is an outstanding record. And there's a couple of other tracks, like different remixes for Emerge, which is obviously their big record. But definitely check out this album. Try and find the original one if you can. And try and find a track, Mega Colon. It's an amazing track. Brilliant. So that was our number 17. Thank you very much. Join us on the next one for our number 16 album. See you in a minute.